So originally I was gonna make this guide beginner friendly, but the script for it ended up being like way too long, so what I've decided is I'm gonna split it into 2 videos. That means that this video will be specifically about beating Lockerless. Meanwhile, the other video will be more like about beating the game regularly. It's mostly gonna be about how to deal with each entity in the game. But once that video does drop, I'll just like leave a link probably in the description if you wanna check that out. But this guide is mostly for people that are already familiar with the game. So I've split this video into a few parts. The first part will be me like doing recommendations. So like what items you should bring into the game and what your settings should look like. After that, I'll teach you how you can find safe spots on your own, because I could make the whole video show like a montage of me finding safe spots, but you're probably gonna have more use out of it if you can find them yourself. And then the last part will be mostly about how you should go about navigating the facility. Like it will be mostly about advice, specifically in the ridge as well, because that's where people struggle the most. So what items do I recommend you buy? I recommend the flash beacon or the UV blacklight, 2 or 3 code breachers, and 3 batteries. Now you don't have to buy them, but these are just items I would recommend you get. So why do I recommend these items? Because both the flash beacon or the UV backlight, they both don't aggravate squiddles, so you can just get away with shining them in a dark room. As for the code breachers, they are specifically good if you use them in the ridge. Because in the ridge, sometimes you have to like take a risk and just run a few rooms to find a hiding spot. And if you're being stopped by a locked door, you're most likely gonna end up dying. So having code breachers there is basically just an insurance that you don't get stopped. But again, these are just recommendations, you don't have to buy these items. And if you can't afford them at the start, you can also try your luck with Sebastian, so they're mostly there to help you. It's not mandatory. As for the settings, I recommend you at least have your volume like high enough to catch subtle sounds. Because you don't want to end up walking through the ridge and then Blitz spawns in and you don't hear his like thunder roaring like sound. Or at least I think the sound is pretty subtle. And one setting I really recommend you enable is death mode. When you enable death mode and an entity spawns in, you'll have like a sort of fog appear around your screen. And then the closer an entity is to you, the more it will fade in. Not only that, but the fog will also match in color with whatever entity has spawned in. And this is also especially helpful in the ridge when you don't have light flickers. Now let's talk about the more interesting stuff. So how can you find a safe spot? Alright, so over here I have a recording of me finding a hiding spot. So I'm just gonna show that, and then I'm gonna explain why it works. Okay, this is one of the creative hiding spots. Because the shelf actually blocks line of sight, even with pandemonium. So if you sit like this, you'll be fine. Yes, I can test it, alright. Hopefully I get it right, because I think it's a frontal. That's a bit scary. Okay, let's see how it goes. Yep, it's something you can do. So, why does that work? Well, this entire shelf is actually just a single hitbox. It's basically just a wall to entities. Because how the hitbox works of entities is they have a sort of raycast, I think. Which means that they actually have to see you to kill you. It's not like they get close enough and kill you, they actually have to see you as well. So using furniture to block line of sight basically guarantees you safety. But what you do have to know is what path the entity takes. And this was just 2 doors, so it's a really simple example. Okay, so here's another example of me dodging an entity, and this time it's pandemonium actually, and this is probably one of the most interesting spots I've used. So yeah, I'll just show it. If this is a pandemonium, I'm really screwed. It is. Okay, well I might just not live this, and I'll have to jump the locker, but we'll see how it goes. What? Yeah, don't mind that. Let me go back a few seconds. So, over here, Honestly, I thought it would be dead. I didn't think this would work and I would just jump the locker to my left. But somehow he still didn't see me passing by over here. And it's the same story with the shelf. But I also want to talk about hitboxes now. Actually, I'll talk about pathing first, because I know this door is broken, or at least it's locked, it doesn't work. So I know that Pandemonium will just take the route to the correct door over there. Like, if this was a fake door, for example, with the good people behind it, with the sparking doors, you know what it is. Of course, Pandemonium wouldn't go this way. Still, just go into the correct door. I know that, so I take the shelf. But I must have gotten away by the skin of my teeth with this spot. But you'd think I would die, but the hitbox that the node entity actually cares about is your torso. If your torso's out of sight, you should be fine. I'm not sure about the head hitbox though, but anyway, my arms were basically visible here, I'm pretty sure. But Pandemonium doesn't care about that, or any entity. But also, I'm hiding against this sideways, and the player hitbox is just kind of weird, because your arms also just don't have collision, it seems like. So that's why I go sideways. You'd think like I should hide by either backing myself off against the shelf or facing it forwards. That way my rectangular torso would fit better out of sight. As for that clip where Pandemonium comes through the wall and doesn't see me, that was just a bug. Alright, so here's one more clip I want to show, because so far I've only been showing places where I hide behind furniture, but you can also hide in the open, and I want to show this. I'm also going to pause after this real quick. That's a fake door, or not a fake one, just broke. Okay, so here I've got two doors, and spoiler, this one is real, and this one is fake. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to open this door, and entity spawns in, and I'm going to walk to this door, because I know the entity will path towards the correct one. It will take the shortest route. So let's see that unfold one. This one is real. It's a frontal angler. Again, there's distance here, so he can't reach you. Just gonna go back off. Okay, so I kinda forgot it was a frontal one, but who cares? It's the same pathing, just backwards. But yeah, as you can see, it just works. Keeping your distance. I would die there if it was Pandemonium. And one more thing I want to show, I'm gonna play it back real quick. So I'm not even listening for sound here. On this sign, when it's a fake door, you can like see sort of scan lines move over here. You should look for that, because that's how you find fake doors really easily. It only takes a few seconds to stare at it. You don't have to rely on sounds. So look for scan lines. If you see them over here, it's fake. I'll see if I can find like an example of scan lines on the fake door. I'll just show it on screen. So here's the last clip I want to show, because I used to call this the run ender room, if you've watched my Lockerless video. But honestly, the waterfall area is worse, because in the trenches, you can actually hide behind the lockers. And I wanna show that real quick.
Alright. Oh, not alright, not alright. Ventilation, alright.
It does.
Where are you though?
Okay, so that spot I used. Hold on, let me go back to it.
Ventilation, alright.
So when I'm in the spot, you have to enter it sideways, because otherwise your character doesn't fit, you kind of get pushed out. But if you stand here, once the angler gets close enough to kill you, the locker will actually block the line of sight. So you just end up surviving. So basically, to summarize all that, if you want to figure out that a spot is a safe spot, you want to calculate where the node entity is gonna move, and then you gotta figure out if your safe spot is far away enough. As for those safe spots where you're completely out of sight because you're blocked by furniture, those actually have a term called pandemonium safe spots, because it blocks line of sight with the whole path that a node entity takes. And because of that, it's safe against pandemonium, because he won't see you. So if you want to know if it's a pandemonium safe spot, you just gotta figure out if it blocks line of sight with the whole path. Though it is also possible to like loop an angler or pandemonium around, for example, the observatory, because you're not out of sight for the entire path, so you kind of just have to circle around the giant telescope so pandemonium doesn't see you. So you know how hiding spots work now, but how do the spawns work of the entities? Well, it's quite simple. So in the game, there's a sort of unseen invisible timer, and that timer does a countdown. And when it reaches 0, the game will spawn in a node entity. And once that entity has fully despawned, the timer will be reset and it starts a new countdown. What that time is, I don't think anyone knows, but it is also randomized. Now when you open the door to the next room, it will also lower the countdown by a bit. Now I'm not entirely sure if that's how that works. Like for all I know, that whole timer bit could have been made up, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. And then also, if you open a door to a dark room, I'm pretty sure the timer freezes then, because entities shouldn't be able to spawn into dark rooms. So opening the door to a dark room or leaving it open should cause the timer to freeze. So now that you know how entities spawn, I want to go over some common scenarios you might find yourself in when you're doing Lockerless. But before I do, when you are doing a Lockerless run, you should memorize the safe spots you find, cause you might just have to come back for it. But let's say an entity does spawn in, but you don't have a hiding spot to come back to. Or maybe you do, but it's too far back so you won't make it. Well, in that case, your best option is to continue running, because it takes a few seconds before the entity actually catches up with you, especially if it's Chainsmoker or Pandemonium. So if you continue running a few rooms, you might still find a hiding spot that saves you. Unless it's a frontal angler, in that case you're most likely going to die. But if you did have a hiding spot somewhere far back, you might still make it against a frontal angler, or even Chainsmoker. Anyway, the last thing I want to talk about is the ridge, cause most people struggle here. So for starters, the node entity spawns are increased here, so that's basically why it's so hard. Cause now you have to be even more careful and more lucky. Even though the spawn rates are higher, it still uses a timer. Though obviously it doesn't freeze for dark rooms because, you know, the whole layout is dark there. But remember how I said that a timer only resets when an entity despawns? Well, you can actually make use of this. Especially with Chainsmoker or a frontal angler. So let's say Chainsmoker spawns in, and you're sitting in a safe spot. Once Chainsmoker passes by, you can just move out of your safe spot and open the next door right behind him. Chainsmoker might be slow, but he is still slightly faster than you. But the point is, as long as an entity is active, the timer does not get reset. So you can just open doors, and nothing else can come back to haunt you. Even if Chainsmoker is in the next room, if you listen for the sounds or pay attention to the fog because you have death mode enabled, you can still tell if he's active or not. So even if he appears to be gone because he went to the next room, he can still be active, you can still open the door. As for the frontal angler, I mean, most likely you're gonna be in a safe spot that is close to the next room. But a frontal angler, you know, not only does he open the next room's door for you usually, but he's also gonna move 5 rooms back. And once he passes by, even though he's fast, he's pretty much gonna be active for a while. So you can just open the next room as well there. Could potentially get 2 rooms in a row. Now one last thing I want to talk about in the ridge is Pandemonium. Because having to deal with him in the ridge is rather inconvenient. But there actually is a way to get rid of him, so you don't have to put yourself at risk when you're using an open safe spot. So the first room into the ridge you get a checkpoint, and that checkpoint is a Pandemonium safe spot. Hypothetically, you could sit there and wait until Pandemonium actually spawns in, even if it takes a while. Because once Pandemonium has spawned in once, he will not spawn again for the rest of the ridge. So if you'd want to, you can just wait it out until he's gone. But yeah, that's basically all the advice I really have. One other thing I can suggest is watching Chicklepig's safe spots video. But some spots are apparently outdated, so you can't fully rely on them. Just make sure you don't use spots that don't work. But most spots in the video are still good to use. And also, if I ended up getting something wrong in the video, feel free to correct me in the comments. Whatever I did end up getting wrong, I'll correct in the description of this video. Anyway, if you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe. And yeah, have a good one.